There's no question that the Muncie transmission is incredibly durable. That's part of what makes them so popular. But they are not indestructible. This is a 1968 M20 that I picked up off Facebook Marketplace for 850 bucks. When I popped the case open, everything looked good, but it's still a 55-year-old transmission. So as I got in there and started to tear it apart, it's clear that it's seen better days. And so I'm not a mechanic. I don't have a garage. I don't rebuild transmissions for a living. I've never rebuilt a transmission. So how am I doing that? I go to the internet and I get books that tell me how to do it. And this book has been awesome and invaluable for me to do that. So this is How to Rebuild and Modify Muncie 4-Speeds. I'll put a link down under this video and you can check it out if you want to. But great pictures in here, shows you exactly what to do, and that's what I'm following. So today I am going to start looking at the pieces. I'll do a side-by-side comparison of the old pieces and the new pieces, and we'll take it from there in this second step of rebuilding a Muncie M20. 2, 1. So like I said, I picked this thing up off Facebook Marketplace for 850 bucks, and I only got about 30 seconds to look at it in the parking lot to decide if it was good or not. And I decided it was good enough, and I brought it home. But I knew once I got it back, I was gonna have to completely tear this thing apart and figure out if there were any major issues. And the only major issues I found were the reverse gear, which is basically exploded, which is not a big deal. So you can see where it is just completely obliterated. So that's getting replaced. The other half of the reverse gear also has some nicks in it, but that's nothing that's going to cause any problems since it's a very slow gear and you should not be moving when you engage it. That's how you break it. Don't put your car in reverse while it's moving forward. Other than that, the only other major issue were the gears, and it's not even a major issue. So there's a little bit of rounding off on the engagement teeth, and some of them are kind of nicked, but for the most part, all the gears look really good. Engagement teeth are all there, and there's enough definition left that those will engage fine. Now the synchro rings, these things are disposable because they're just brass. And so these are completely worn down from people grinding gears. And so I got a new set of those to replace that. You can see where they're just completely rounded over. Some of the other ones just wasted. So those are disposable parts. So the rebuild kit I got has a lot of these soft parts in it, and those are all going to get replaced. Like the needle bearings, I'm not going to reuse those. Replacement kit has all new needle bearings, all new keys, all new springs, all new washers. You can see where these are just kind of worn down. I could probably put these back in, but why bother? It's such a cheap part. Just put new parts in. The bearings actually look really good. But the kit comes with new bearings, so while I'm in there, why would I not replace the bearings? So I got new bearings in the kit. Shift combs look good. The forks, these things are toasted. There is a huge gouge on both sides where these are just completely worn down, and there's tons of slop. So all new parts there, and I'll reuse the same bolts because those are fine. There's nothing wrong with cleaning up old bolts. And other than that, all the cases checked out. There's no cracks. I cleaned everything up, scrubbed it down, so all of those will go back together. So yeah, I'll clean off the table and lay out the new parts and show you what's in a rebuild kit. So one of the first major pieces I decided to swap out to improve the condition of the transmission is the synchro slider and hub. And these are really important that they fit together really well because this is what is allowing your gears to shift smoothly. So if we take a gear and put it up here, synchro teeth on the gear lock in like that. The synchro slider is what slides back and forth and makes that engagement. Problem is when your teeth are worn out on the gears, they can pop out of gear. So to fix that problem, I ordered all new synchro sliders and hubs, but they are not just regular synchro sliders and hubs. They are special. Special because they will take care of the problem of the worn synchro teeth on the gear. So this is what is called a torque lock synchro slider versus a stock synchro slider. And it's got one special feature that allows my gears to not pop out. So if we put the synchro slider and hub next to the torque lock synchro slider and hub, they look almost identical, but there is one very important difference, and this is why I'm replacing them. So if I pull the hub out, zoom in, it is the groove here. So you notice how it is vertical. That vertical groove is where the worn out teeth of the gear will fall in place in order for the gear to lock in place. But worn out gears can pop out. And so with a torque lock slider, pull the hub out, you'll notice that there is a small notch on the side of each of those channels. Now what that's going to do is those worn out teeth are going to find a nice happy place. They're going to settle in there and it will keep the gear from popping out of gear, which is really important because you don't want your transmission coming out of gear. So because I have worn gears, I am doing everything I can to get them to work as optimally as possible. So one of the parts that I absolutely have to switch out are the shift forks because these are completely worn down. You can see how they're shining in there. It's because they've been completely gouged out in the synchro sliders. And so what these do is they go in here like this, and when you're shifting, that's what's forcing the synchro slider back and forth. And these have a ton of play in them, and that's going to make shifting really nasty. So getting all new shift forks to put in. Those are nice and new and will take up a lot of that slop in there. Now the sliders should be no less than 0.35 and these are coming in at 0.32. So yeah, these are wasted. So we'll get the new ones in there. New ones are coming in at 0.37. So those are going to be nice and tight. We'll move on to the rest of the pieces and go on from there. So the rest of the parts are relatively small. I've got the new counter shaft. While I'm in there, I'm going to replace that anyway. This all came as part of a kit. I got this from 5speeds.com if you're wondering where it came from. And I think it's really important to say that you want to get the highest quality parts that you can. Yes, you can get cheaper parts to put in your transmission. All of this stuff cost me probably about 400 bucks, but I went with the highest grade stuff that I could find. So new bearings made in Japan. So I know that those are going to be good. The hardened brass synchro rings. So these are going to replace those other ones. You can see how nice and pointy they are. Go ahead and swap these out. These are really cheap and they're basically disposable in a transmission. So it also comes in the kit. All these locking keys, those are going to replace the old ones. So, I mean, this stuff is cheap. It's small, little tiny parts. Yes, I could probably reuse this stuff, but why use it when it's just a couple dollars to get a new kit and make sure it's perfect. French locks for the front, those are easy. Those are only a couple bucks. And then you got the kit with all the springs, all new washers that are just going to replace these grungy old things. I mean, yeah, I could put those back in there, but why would I bother doing that? You just spend 20 bucks, get a bag. It's got all these things in there. It's going to replace all the springs. So all these will get replaced because they lose tension over time. I don't know how the tension is on them, so I'm not even going to deal with it. Just going to replace it. And then this is all the seals and things like that, and the oil sling plate that's going to get replaced. So this solid oil sling plate is going to replace this one with the grooves in it. And that's all. Also, this is the nut that holds the main shaft in, and so this just gets destroyed when you take it off. It's cheap. It's a couple bucks. Replace that too. Needle bearings, of course, those are all in here too, because I don't know how much wear is on these. So why would I put old needle bearings back in? There's no reason for that. It's cheap parts. So that's basically it. That's what you're going to get in a rebuild kit, is all these kind of essential parts, all the things that are soft that are just going to wear out. Now, the other thing that I had to replace was obviously the reverse gear, because this thing is just jacked. There's just chunks of pieces of everything missing off of that, and I found those bouncing around in the transmission. Luckily, they didn't cause any damage to anything else, and so I was also able to order a renew reverse idler gear. So that'll go in, and that's really the only main gear that I'm going to have to replace in the entire transmission. So that's about it. That's not a lot of parts for not a lot of money. About 400 bucks for everything, and I got 850 into the transmission to start with. So I think I'm coming out ahead on this one. And yeah, I'm pretty stoked with the quality of the parts I got and looking forward to putting this thing together. So you can see there's really not a lot of parts that go into rebuilding a Muncie. For the most part, you're just replacing the soft parts that are going to wear out anyway, unless you've completely abused the transmission, in which case you're looking at replacing gears and all kinds of other things. But for the most part, you can get away with a couple $100 worth of parts to make the thing run like new. But if you're like me and you have absolutely no idea what you're doing, the Muncie 4-speed rebuild book is the way to go, because this thing will show you everything about a Muncie, how it works, how to take it apart, how to put it back together. It is invaluable, and it is what I'm relying on to do this rebuild, since I've never done one before. Also, you can reach out to 5speeds.com and they will give advice on whatever your project is. So I got to give a shout out to them, and thanks for the advice on which parts I needed to put in there. And they've got high quality parts, and I'm really happy with what I ordered from them. So that's it for this video. The next one is where the fun starts, because I get to take all this stuff and start putting the puzzle back together. So I'll be putting links down under this video to all the parts that I'm using and the different resources that I've tapped into. And if you have any comments, throw them down there and I will get back to you. So until the next video, I will see you later.